It's the Schick Show. It's the Schick Show.
It's the Schick Show.
All right, everybody. Listen, this week may be a little bit different. It's me solo again. It's been a while. And boy, I've got a lot of things to catch you guys up on. It has been a whirlwind of 6 months. I want to thank everybody for listening and being a part of this. And honestly, I didn't know where it was going to go, how it was going to work. If people would want to come on. Some people, my brother, he doesn't want to hear his voice, and that's okay. I'm not forcing anybody to come on here, but I've had some incredible people come into the studio and sit down and just talk with me and share their story, share their thoughts, and I have so much respect for that, and I have respect for those that don't want to. And man, that's isn't that what makes our world just so awesome? Is that some people, they either just don't want to hear themselves or just don't want to sit down and share. I get it. I get it. I guess, for me, I just wanted to sit down and share and get perspectives on life from other people and learn from them. And this is my avenue of doing that. Everybody's got their own way, but I've spoke about, my ancestry, my heritage, my lineage a few times. I've kind of alluded to the idea that maybe my last name isn't biologically Schick. I want to preface that with I am Scott Schick, and I will be Scott Schick. My kids are Schicks. My wife is, born or married, married into that'd be weird, but married into the Schick family, and what a family it is. And I'm very proud of my last name, and I'm thankful for it. It is as much a part of me as anything else on this planet, and I take ownership of it. So, but with that being said, I've spent some time over the past couple years thinking about a conversation with my brother Joe and his former wife or ex-wife Wendy. It feels weird saying ex-wife Wendy because they're still best friends. It weirds me out to say it that way because when to me, an ex is, just somebody that's kind of X'd out or excommunicated or whatever. And I don't see her that way. She's still my sister-in-law and at least a sister in some way. So anyway, I'm just kind of rambling, but I've alluded to that my dad had shared with Joe and Wendy that he believed that his father, Robert William Schick, may not have been biologically Robert William Schick. Well, I am a nibshit at heart, and I'm also someone who wants to know the truth. And I did some digging, and I had to know because there were things that just didn't align with the story I was told. Many of the stories I've been told, by the way, about this possibility. And a couple years ago, Wendy Schick, shared with me some information she had found about a man named Robert Settlemeyer, who was from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and that the birth certificate she had located had identified my grandpa, Robert William Schick, as being this Robert Settlemeyer's son. And it had my grandma, my great grandma Schick. Her name was Emma Allen. That was her maiden name. And Emma Allen and Robert Settlemeyer show up on this birth certificate. And interestingly enough, at the top of the birth certificate, it says legitimate question mark, and it's marked no. And above that, it says Robert William Settlemeyer. Settlemeyer is crossed out, and above it is written Allen. So basically saying that my grandpa Schick was not taking Robert Settlemeyer's name. He was going to be Robert William Allen, and that Robert Settlemeyer and my great grandmother Emma Allen did not have a long-term relationship, that they basically just uh, created a child together, and he was on the birth certificate and she was on the birth certificate. And then my grandfather, my grandpa Schick, who was birthed as Robert William Allen, was on there as well. And that's in 1910. Well, the story was that Emma Allen had come across from Canada with my grandpa, Robert William Schick, in utero. And that whoever this Robert Settlemeyer was, he was a Canadian that didn't come across, or whatever it might be. And it just didn't jive up. And that she came across with my grandfather, or great grandfather, and I don't know, things just didn't align, so it didn't make sense to me. And I had to dig. It wasn't good enough. That wasn't going to be good enough for me to say, oh yeah, well, evidently I'm not a Schick biologically. Um, I'm someone else. That wasn't good enough for me. So here we go, right? I start digging, and what I did was, I got on Ancestry. They have a 14-day free trial, and my free trial in next week. So I'm trying to get this all done before that happens. But what I did was I jumped on there and I started digging, and I looked over at Jennifer. I said, I'm a little bit blown away here what I'm finding, and it's really interesting. There's pictures, there's documents, and birth certificates, death certificates, pictures of gravestones, census records that show who lived in the house and how old they were and everything else. And it wasn't aligning. It was showing that Emma Allen had married Robert Schick. And in that process, or John, she had married Joseph Schick, Joseph John Schick. It gets crazy in the Schick family. There's a lot of John Josephs, Joseph Johns, Joe Juniors, Joe my brother. It gets wicked up in there with a lot of Josephs and Johns, and it just rotates one generation to the next. So there's not juniors until my cousin Joe Schick Jr., who would have been a nephew to my grandfather Robert Schick. So it gets a little bit muddy for me there. I apologize. And I'm even looking at Ancestry and trying to figure it out. So just know, if you want to dig in, Ancestry is a great tool, and you can get it for a couple weeks for free as you dig and build your family tree. And I went all in on my Schick side. I went all in on the Clevenger side. I went all in on the Toby side and the Cook side. And I even started digging deep into my wife's Knuckles clan. And man, that thing was fun to run that route, because it just kept running. There was great documentation leading all the way back to Ireland. Really interesting stuff and interesting people. Uh, just the names and titles and things that popped up. So that was really cool too. My side's cool as well. So I took this deep dive because I just had to know. And guys, it's a fact. I have a real hard time denying the fact that my great grandfather's name was Robert Henry Settlemeyer. He was born in 1890, and this all aligns with census records, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates. Everything aligns, the years align, the dates align, the names all match up. There is a man named Robert H. Settlemeyer, who is my great grandfather biologically, who was born to a Henry Settlemeyer and an Elizabeth Settlemeyer, all from the Pennsylvania, right around the Allegheny County. He is buried in the, I'm just going to pull it up and look, that way I got to guess. But he is buried at the St. John's Cemetery. I think that's what it's called. And this guy, he died at 26. So there's not a whole lot on him, right? It's not like you're going to find a ton of stuff. He was born in 1890, died in 1916. He's at the Sacred Heart Cemetery in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So if anybody out there listening is in the Johnstown, PA area, boy, get a picture of that one for me and send it to me. I can see it here on my screen right now. But that's, in fact, who he is. He worked for he was a car repairer for the Pennsylvania Railroad. He was a mechanic for them, for the rail cars. And his mother, her name was Sarah Rorabaugh, Rorabaugh. And just some really cool stuff, man. I think looking back at this, you get an idea of how someone's story can change, how someone's life is impacted by other people's choices, by sudden life occurrences. I think we probably all know someone who has had a child out of wedlock, and both parties said, hey, one of us, most likely the woman, is going to raise that child. And even in today's day and age, there are reluctant parents, and this is one of those where, looking back, it appears there was a reluctancy in some way, shape, or form of them becoming a long-term couple for whatever the reason may have been. This may have been just for lack of a better term, it feels weird talking about your grandparents just having a hookup, but maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was a relationship, and when she realized she was pregnant, that one of the two of them got cold feet. Who knows? But these stories are gone. No one is here to tell their story. And my great grandma Schick, Emma, who knows, what was going on with her. But I see census records where she was living with her parents, with her child, with her son, Robert, and then she marries in 1912. So there's a 2-year span where she is an unwed mother. And in 1910, 1911, 1912, that's a very difficult position to be in. So when I say that I'm proud to be a Schick, much of that is due to John Joseph Schick coming along, and Joseph John Schick. Man, I'm telling you, it's so hard. Joseph John Schick coming along and accepting her with child that's someone else's, and he gives my grandpa his name. Man, I'm getting chills thinking about that. And what a gift. What a gift to give someone your name, raise them as your own, be their father, and make that opportunity for them. And I don't want to get into the politics of, well, what about if it's, same-sex couple? I'm not talking about that today. And it has nothing to do with this situation. So if you're in your car and you're like, well, what about this? We ain't talking about it today. There will be a time and place for that conversation. But what a gift this guy gave my grandpa. He gave him a dad. Just let that sink in for a second. Think about how important or how much of an impact your father had on you, whether it was good or bad. It is who you are, and because of that person has impacted you, whether they were just a sperm donor. that doesn't make them a dad. This guy, Joseph John Schick, gave someone the gift of a dad and raised him, gave him his name, and gave me an opportunity to become Scott Schick, and I'm thankful for that. Last week, I went over to Dunkirk, and at the Dunkirk IOOF cemetery, that's where my great grandpa, or my grandpa and my great grandpa, and uncles and great uncles and cousins, and they are buried over there. And I had an opportunity to just walk around, and I literally stood in front of John Joseph Schick's grave, him and Emma's grave, and I said, thank you. I was just compelled to thank that guy, and I didn't really know why at that point. And I'll be honest, I didn't really know why until just about now. As I'm sitting here talking about it, why did I thank him? Well, I thought I thanked him because he gave me a chance to be here. I don't know what kind of, dad he was to him. From what I'm gathering about my own Grandpa Schick, he wasn't much of a dad to my dad. But my dad was a great dad. He was the best dad I could have asked for. And I'm appreciative of that. All the good and the bad. The times when I thought, I hate that man. And the times I knew I loved him. The times when he yelled at me. And the times that I yelled back. Or the times that I just went and yelled at him for being an asshole. I loved him. And I love him now. And I love those people that came before me because they gave me an opportunity to be here, to live a life, to have my own kids, to have a wife, to have an opportunity to be a dad. And I've told you guys, man, I just want to be a husband and a dad. That's what I wanted to do. And I get to do that because of these guys. Now, I've got a picture of my Grandpa Schick here next to me. And I put it there because I'm not sure what kind of man he was. I've been told that he was a raving alcoholic and an abusive husband, and maybe an abusive parent. I've never heard a clear story, but my dad sought him out when he was young. I mean, he would literally walk from Eaton, Indiana to Muncie to go see him, to just have a chance to spend some time with him. And most of the time he said he was passed out drunk. And I've found a newspaper article through Ancestry that he didn't pay his child support. He went to court and had to, didn't pay his $15 for child support for his kids. I've heard stories that he walked by my Aunt Betty on the streets in Muncie, walked right by her and didn't acknowledge her. I didn't hear the story, from the source. And for me, I'm a source guy, but the source that it came from, I trust and respect and love, and I believe it. And from what I've seen, I believe it. But he's still a person who is responsible for giving me life. So there is that love there. I didn't know him. Obviously, his actions affected how my life has turned out, in good and bad. But I want to at least give the guy a chance. I saw something on Facebook the other day I thought was really cool. I think it might have been my cousin Linda, was Linda Jones, and she's remarried, but it's my cousin's mom, and she posted something about, why aren't we approaching people with love and acceptance rather than with hate and contempt? And I'm approaching this guy with love and acceptance and questioning his life. I'm questioning how he has become who he became. That's what I want to know. And unfortunately, man, it's hard when there is no one here to tell his story. No one's here to tell me how that all fell apart. But in 1951, he failed to pay his child support. My dad would have been 11 years old. So my dad was without a father from at least 11 until Robert William Schick died in 1956. So biologically, Robert Settlemeyer dies of pulmonary, it says tuberculosis, pulmonary tuberculosis on his death certificate. I can't help myself, guys. I got to look that up because I thought it was a pulmonary embolism, which is a very different thing, I think. Anyway, I'm not a doctor, guys. And I can see where I looked at pulmonary embolism right there in my search history. So, pulmonary tuberculosis. What the heck is that? It's a serious infection caused by the bacterium, microbacterium, tuberculosis that involves the lung, might be spread to other organs. TB. So it's TB. So, oh, interesting. 1926, he dies of tuberculosis. I got to look that up and see if there was something in Pennsylvania going on with oh man, there's a 1926 film about tuberculosis. You see kind of rabbit hole crap can happen here. So, oh wow, this is a whole new story that I got to dive down now. Crap. I thought I had answers. I read it wrong. Huh. Interesting. Anyway, well, I'm not going to dive in that right now, but that's something I'm going to have to dig into. So, okay. Great grandpa dies of TB. That's news. At 26, that explains that. So it's not some kind of, huh. So, listen, if you have not been on Ancestry, a little off, it's on topic. If you haven't been on Ancestry, I highly recommend you get on there. Just search a name. Literally go to the homepage and it says search people. Type in a name and it's going to bring some stuff up. It is so interesting how much information that is out there that is accurate and inaccurate. The original piece that Wendy had put on Ancestry was a little bit flawed, which is where my answers, or, my questions came from that I had to seek answers for. So I went on this deep dive, and in that deep dive, I was able to verify the information she found, but the way I did it was with documentation. So I invited her to come look at my tree. She gets on, looks at my tree, looks at the documentation. She says, oh my gosh, yeah, we definitely did find the right person, but now we've got the correct dates. We've got the location. We've got some history with it. We've got some genealogy to go with that. And it matters. She has 2 kids who have, and I mean, there are children out there with this person's DNA, and it's important to know what happened. So that's helpful for me to know. On my grandpa Toby's side, my uncle Chet lost both legs to some heart or some kind of heart cardiovascular inheritable disease. Lost both legs. My grandpa Toby lost a leg, but I think that was due to diabetes. And so, just these things are important. So starting with my mom and dad and what I knew to be true, I was able to start looking at other people who were hints, and they'll give you this little green leaf at the top of their name. I'm looking at the homepage right now, and I have like all kinds of people on here that it's showing me, hey, you've got some hints that go along with them. So I'm going to click on the hint that it's showing me on my paternal line for Robert J. Schick, who's my dad. So I click on that leaf, and it pulls up the obituary. It pulls up the things that are submitted by my sister-in-law Wendy, and shows a photo of him. She has him listed as Robert Sonny Schick. Well, these are the little things that matter on here. His middle name was not a name, it was an initial. His middle initial was J, so it was just Robert Schick Jr. And what I was told was my grandma didn't remember my grandpa's middle name when she put it on the birth certificate, so he became Robert J, short for Junior, but it doesn't show Junior on the birth certificate. On a census report, I'm going to pull this up. On a census report, it shows Robert W. Schick as the head of household, Marguerite as the wife, Betty May, my Aunt Betty, 7 years old, as the daughter, and then Robert Jr. as the son. So, interestingly enough, on the census it shows that. It shows they lived in Dunkirk, Jay County, Indiana, and that my grandpa was a tool maker at Durham Furniture. And it's all in handwriting. It's so interesting, guys. If you're at all into history and knowing your ancestry, absolutely check it out, because it just some cool stuff. These documents that pop up, it shows that they were the 168th household to be stopped at in Dunkirk, Indiana during that census period. And it shows on the census that my grandpa Schick was born in Pennsylvania, that my grandma Marguerite, Betty May, and my Aunt Betty, and my dad Robert Jr. all born in Indiana. It shows their age, the grade they were in. Like, it shows that Robert Schick had 2 years of high school, and that my grandma had went to 7th grade, and that's what she had completed. They were 29 and 27. That my Aunt Betty was in 2nd grade at the time. And so, yeah, and that they were renters. They paid $12 a month for rent. Just some cool stuff that, makes you just sit back and go, $12 a month in rent. Oh, I would love that. Well, they didn't have running water in their house either, I don't believe. So, yeah, there's that. Yeah. But check it out. It's so cool. So, as I'm diving in, I go through the Toby side of things, which is my mom's dad, Harry Toby. And I was able to find some pictures. And through one of those pictures, I found a lady named Patty Novak. Patty Novak is a cousin of mine. Her dad, or her mother, was my grandpa Toby's niece. So she was born to his brother Herbert. Herbert had written a biography, and I find this out through Patty, that there is a biography handwritten by him. She sends it to me. We talk on the phone. Like, I message her through Ancestry, and she's like, "Oh my God, I haven't been on Ancestry in 2 years. Thanks for reaching out. I always wondered about my cousins, down in Hartford City, Indiana. We used to spend a bunch of time there. My mom and your aunt, Aunt Carol Sue," and she kept calling her Carol Sue. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's always just been Aunt Carol to me. And the Carol Sue part was kind of throwing me, but she starts talking about stories about her grandpa Herbert, and I ended up sharing them with my Uncle Fred, and Fred's like, "Uncle Herbert was a real asshole." And I'm like, that's exactly what she said, what Patty told me, But then, so I'm messaging cousins through this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I found these pictures, and it was my grandpa, Harry Toby, and his brothers, his mom and dad, and just so interesting to see these people that I've never met. I didn't get to meet. I knew my grandpa Toby enough, but I was only 7 when he passed away. You know, my grandma Schick, my grandma Fox, she remarried a man named William Fox, and there's a whole nother story I'm digging in with that, and I'll share it at some point. But you know, like I didn't get to know them, and I feel like in some way through this, I'm getting to know them a little bit, and at least learning something about them in a way that I don't know if they would have shared it. I don't know, but I'm finding out new information that is just very interesting. You know, my brother. Part of this was my brother was coming home from Houston, and Joe's actually here right now. He's not sitting in on the podcast. He's down in the garage going through pictures, and we have tubs, literal like storage tubs, like 30, 15-gallon tubs or whatever they are. I'm guessing they're 15-gallon tubs. I don't know how big some tubs are, but they're big. And we went through them. We spent 9 hours sifting through pictures yesterday. And by the end of it, we were like, oh my God, we should have just thrown some of that stuff away. Blurry pictures, postcards that didn't have any writing on them, and all these different things that get thrown into a bucket. But we didn't. But at the end of it, we ended up narrowing my stash of pictures down to like 3 totes and maybe 4 little boxes. And I chose some little boxes because the place I store them in has some little cubbies you can stuff them into. So all the loose pictures went in those boxes. I taped them up, sealed them, and put them over in those little cubby holes to where I could put bigger stuff around them. But as we sifted through there were sometimes we ran across pictures where we're just chuckling. And, you know, I don't know if my cousin Toby listens to the show. I know he has a couple times, but it became so much fun to find pictures of Toby Jones. If y'all know Toby Jones, make sure you rib him about it. But every picture, he has the same look on his face. And we're talking through the years, from the time he was a baby sitting on my grandma Ruth Toby's lap and his mom's lap to the time that, you know, he is in his 20s, that these pictures were same expression, always eyes wide open, mouth open, and like just this grin. And every time we come across a picture of him, we go, guess who? And I'd throw it up, and Joe and I'd just start laughing because it was the same picture, and we kept seeing it. Both of us were seeing it, and we finally pointed it out. Joe pointed it out to me. He's like, he has the same face in all these pictures. And then we had to start showing it to each other. Then we ran across some relatives where I'm like, hey, those are the kind of pictures you want to hide. You know, there's a possibility that your kid could end up that ugly. God, that's a terrible thing to say, but I wouldn't be saying if it wasn't true, folks. There's a couple of them where I'm like, oh my God, that's my relative. And the haircuts, oh, dude, haircuts, come on. It was like we went through this time where we had a mirror drought or a stylist drought of some sort. You know, there are haircuts that should never be, and I saw them all. You know, Bill doesn't listen to the show. I think Nick might, Amber might, but boy, guys, I'm sorry. Some of the haircuts y'all had when you're little, God bless you. I'm glad you turned out okay. 'Cause if we'd have known the ramifications of those haircuts, Nick, I would have certainly went ahead and buzzed that hair off, buddy. You did not need a mullet at 2 years old, spiky on top, mud flap in the back, brother. You were 2. You didn't even have a chance. I'm sorry. And I've seen your kids. I want to thank you for taking good care of them, not giving them a mullet. If your kid has a mullet out there, that's on you, man. You know, just know the risk. There's a risk, folks. Anyway, I'm back. I'm way off track. But there are so many cool pictures that we uncovered. And as we went through them, I started thinking about my kids have never seen them. It's like I've done a disservice. As a kid, I would go through those things with, you know, either by myself or with my mom all the time. And I've always been interested in it. So it's not like something new. And if my kids aren't interested, it's okay. I'm not going to, it's not going to break my heart, but I want to at least know that I've made it available. So I've got these pictures I pulled out. Most of them are of me, some of my dad, my mom, and there's nothing cooler than seeing, your beautiful parent. My mom was a gorgeous young woman and gorgeous woman, as a mom, but just seeing her posing with her different dresses and stuff on, and I'm imagining, like, as I'm looking at the picture, I'm like, what were they thinking? And some of them was the haircuts. I was like, what the hell were they thinking? But others, I was like, my mom is posing in these outfits out in front of her mom and dad's, right off the porch, and I'm like, I look at Joe and I said, I can imagine her best friend Marcia Clark standing there going, "Oh, go put that other dress on. We'll take his picture and we'll send it to Sonny." And my dad was like in the Navy at that point, and my dad went in the Navy in I think at 50, 55, 50, maybe 54, 55. I'd have to look, but I found his naval records. That was cool. Haven't dug through them because we were busy. We had to focus what we want to do. And just finding this documentations of people's lives and learning about the life they led and how incredible these ordinary people are and the thoughts they were having and how different the times were, how similar the times are now. Listen, I love my running water. I like having heat in my house, that's, and clean air and everything else. But seeing my grandpa Toby and his brother Chet on a donkey named Bonita was one of the flippin' favorite things I've found in that group of pictures. Bonita was the name of the donkey. And then you see other pictures of them and just the decimation of the area around where they were taking these pictures at. And you're like, God, I am thankful for asphalt streets and insulated houses and Romex wiring, because I'm looking at it going, they may not have had running water in their house. They may not have had reliable electricity. I'm very thankful for the things we have now, but boy, there was a simplicity to their lives. They weren't overran with nonstop media of some sort, a barrage of podcasts, streaming of music, streaming of TV to distract us from our family. And I had such a great evening last night sitting down with my two brothers. I missed my sister. She couldn't make it. For whatever reason, she couldn't make it last night. And I missed her. I wanted her there. I wanted her and her husband, Eric, to be there to share in that opportunity for my kids to see all of us together. I wanted for us to share in that opportunity. And but for my kids to be able to be there and just hear some stories from my brothers, to see how we all interact with each other. My kids haven't got to see a whole lot of that for whatever reason. We just weren't as close as Jennifer's family, and I'm so thankful for the Knuckles family and the closeness that she has with her. I've talked about that, but those are the times we weren't distracted. We weren't playing with our phones. We weren't watching TV. We weren't listening to some streaming service. We weren't worried about work. We just hung out and pigged out on some Pizza King pizza, man. We had 3 large pizzas sitting on the table for 5, 6, 7 people. We pigged out. There might have been a medium pizza left over after it was all said and done that the girls took home. But it was a great night. And then at the end of it, as we're getting ready to leave, one of my best friends, Todd Said, comes in and he's trying to hide himself, and I'm acting like I don't see him. He puts his hood up. Like, he comes in, I look over and I see these 3 big dudes walk in Well, one of them's him and his son, or his two sons, Bryant and Grover, and I see him put a hood on. He's like walking around. Well, he's hustling for one thing, and if you're hustling towards somebody with your hood on, you're going to get their attention because it's usually not a good thing. So, Todd, I know you're a listener. Man, it was awesome to see you. I love you, man. I love you. And so it's great to talk to him and see him and to see his boys, talk to them for a few minutes. And then, back off home we went and hanging out with my brother Joe at home for a little bit, just having some drinks and just talking about going through 9 hours of pictures. Joe's still downstairs sifting them. Like it has been an incredible weekend. And just so you know, it's Saturday. So for my listeners, it is 10:50 on 12/9/2023. So for my listeners that'll be listening in this morning, which will be 12:10 at 5 a.m. and on, thanks for being here. I have been looking forward to doing a podcast like this from the beginning. I look forward to doing more of them as I did. I do. My tongue's not working, as I dive deeper into the ancestry of my family. I may have to get another ancestry free membership of some sort, or just pick it up and pay for like a month or something. But it's not cheap. It's like $30 a month or some crazy crap. I think there's a special going on. Let me go to the homepage. I'll tell you what the special is going on. Not that anybody here really cares, let's be honest. But yeah, shop now. Ends December 31st. Terms apply. There's always terms, dude. Always terms. So $60 a month for Ancestry. What's included? Blah, blah, blah. Yada, yada, yeah. But I would recommend you jump on there just for the, just for the month. And actually, Patty's name is not Novak. It's now Bagby, Bagby. Sorry, Patty, if you're listening, and I hope you are. Man, it was great talking to you too. But anyway, go check it out. It is so interesting. Get into those pictures that your folks have around. Go back and look at them. There's so many cool pictures. And why, everybody always took pictures way back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. Nobody's smiling. Nobody's having a good time back then. And, we talked with JD Beckley last week, and we talked about how, they're clearing land. They're trying to create a life for themselves, and it was hard living. No wonder they weren't smiling. Number one, you got to stand there forever because it took forever to create a picture. But number two, like your ass was working all the time. So you ain't going to be happy. It was hard. It's a hard life. We are spoiled, guys. We're pretty spoiled. Even those of you that are out there working hard, I get it. You're like, a hard life. I got to dig ditches all day. I get it. But man, most likely you went there in a car that was reliable, or you had a ride from somebody that was reliable, and you got to your home or, your abode of some sort, and it probably had heat or air conditioning. These folks didn't have heat and air. They might have had heat, but in the summertime, everybody's outside because it was probably cooler to be outside and get some wind than it was to be inside and be flipping miserable with the heat and humidity. No wonder we had to play outside as kids. We were in there talking and making noise and running around driving our parents nuts when they were burning up inside. Mom's trying to get supper ready because, there wasn't ready-made meals sitting on the shelf at Needler, or you couldn't order it online and have it delivered, or you weren't going out to eat all the time. No wonder they were upset and miserable most of the time. But anyhow, I saw a lot of love in those pictures too. A lot of smiles, a lot of love that was shown between, a lot of pride in family, a lot of people wanting to share themselves. Also saw some really cool stuff. People were sending postcards that of like pictures of their kids. That's pretty cool. We still do that. We send the Christmas cards and stuff. Well, we don't. We're terrible with Christmas cards. I'm sorry for people who send us Christmas cards. I think they finally taken us off their list. we don't get them anymore. And I apologize because we're not like Christmas card people, but I did appreciate seeing everybody's Christmas cards when they sent them to us. It was always cool to see their kids and their family and, them wishing us a happy holiday, yada, yada. But guys, dig in, start looking, find out who you are, find out who that person was, find out, how you became you is important. You need to know that. I think everyone needs to know that. You know, I think finding out that my grandma, I want to know more about her story. She was the youngest of 12 or 13. There were a couple children that died in, either in childbirth or shortly after. And then she had all these siblings, and um, they create 11 people create a lot of cousins, man. And my brothers, they share with me about going to the Clevenger family reunions and how much love they had for all those folks. I didn't really get to know them. I was so much younger that by the time I came along, that generation of family had created bonds, and I wasn't really tight with them. Even the cousins that were my age, we knew each other. I found a picture of my. I went to a dance with one of my cousins. You know, because her boyfriend was out of town or at college or something. You know, I probably haven't. I don't know if I've talked to her since. I don't know what happened to her and her brother. And so the Studebaker family, I don't know where they're at. And there's only a couple that I still communicate with to this day. I see my cousin Kim and Camus quite a bit, and we talk. And I've got some pictures. I've talked to her. I'm gonna make a copy. I've got all these pictures that my brother and I went through yesterday. They're all digitized. I had a friend of mine do that, and I'm so thankful. God, tubs are like on a little card, but check out your family. It's important. Even if you're not doing the DNA thing, which I don't know if I am or not. I don't know if I'm going to do the whole ancestry DNA piece. Do we need our DNA out there running around? I don't know. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough, guys. Thanks for listening in. It's an awesome Sunday. It's a beautiful day. It's a little bit rainy, I think, but I think it's going to clear up as the day goes on. But we're going to Topgolf tonight. I'm so excited. Well, last night, you're listening on Sunday, but we're going to Topgolf. We're hanging out as a family, and we're just going to have a good time. We're going to go to Indy and get some bass bows, and I love bass bows. Mass Ave's changed a lot since Joe's been in Indy. He introduced Jennifer and I to Bass Bows, and we've had some great times at Bass Bows Pizza down on Mass Avenue. But he hasn't been there in quite a while, and it's changed so much in the past 10 years. I don't even think he'll recognize it. And so I'm excited to see that. We're going to an antique store, which is something my mom would have done. So it's kind of honoring her. We all love going to antique stores, I think, maybe except Bill, because there's dust and he has allergies. But whatever it is, we're going to have a great time. And we get to do it as a family. And it's something we don't get to do often enough. So I'm excited. I don't even mind my brothers. I don't even mind Bill being grumpy. He's like grumpy Smurf, man. So anyhow, thank you. Thanks for listening in. I've got a couple other things coming up. I'm actually going to get Jennifer in here, and we're going to talk about our summer. I've got it all kind of planned out so that she knows what we're going to talk about. She needs a list like that. She can't just do what I do and just start, jabbering on. And I could go on, here's that Southern goodbye. Sorry, Scott Love. But I got her coming in. I've still got some stuff I want to talk about with Bob Ross. So there's some cool things coming our way. You might get some solos or, me and Jennifer, and I still got some guests that are coming around, and I can't wait to share that with you. So there's some cool stuff coming. It's been a while since I've done a solo, and man, I just appreciate you guys hanging around. So check me out on the Twitters and the Facebooks and all that stuff. I'm on the Facebook. It's the Schick Show, and Twitter is the Real Mr. Schick. Instagram, the Real Mr. Schick, and then you can find me at scottschick.com. Check that out too. Thanks everybody. Appreciate you. I'm gonna go Topgolf, dude. Have some drinks. some food, see some antiques. More importantly, going to hang out with family. We're going to make some memories. Take some pictures that'll, never end up in a tub. They'll just end up on the web. Well, in the cloud. I'm out. See ya.